yes, I admit that there is inflation. I admit that there is economic hardship in the country. But don't also forget that the three major candidates of the three different political parties, the APC, the PDP, and the Labour Party in the 2023 general elections, all promised to remove subsidy. Nigeria was living more like a fake life. That is why we had a subsidy regime that benefited the rich who were involved in the importation of refined products. And then we were using about $1.5 billion monthly to defend the naira, and we had about 5 different exchange rate regimes in the country. Those things were going to collapse the country at some point, and that is why this difficult, painful, and tough decision was taken by the president to remove subsidy, which has actually inflated the prices of commodities in the country. Everyone is affected, but we can see a gradual release of the hardship. We can see that fuel has stabilized at around 900 naira, 890, 900 naira. It is not the best. We expect that it will come down further. We've seen the stabilization of the exchange rate at about 1,530 naira, the parallel market rate. At the standard rate across board. So gradually these things are coming down. I'm not saying that this is where we ought to be. We ought to be better. We need to introduce policies that will ameliorate the plight of Nigerians, which is what the Tinubu administration is trying to do. But sometimes economic policies take time to mature and begin to yield the results desired. So the party in April met in a national summit and endorsed the president for a second tenure. Once the president has been declared as the sole candidate of the party, every chapter of the party is expected to follow through with that. And so we feel that by the time the president comes back for a second term, he will consolidate on some of the difficult and tough policies that he has introduced to address the teething problems of our economy. We can see globally inflation rates have risen exponentially from somewhere around 2001, 2002 because of certain factors, the disruption of the global supply chains arising from the war in Ukraine and Russia, and also the Middle East crisis, because there is difficulty in free navigation. And so these things have happened. You can see crisis in Nepal. You can see crisis in so many countries where the hardship has gotten to the point where people can no longer bear it. And so it is not an isolated case in Nigeria. I plead with Nigerians to understand the fact that the government is working, and then by the policies introduced, the subnational units, which are the states and the local governments, have also received increased allocations, and we expect that there will be policies at the horizontal level of governance at the states and the local government level, so also drive down the cost of living. Thank you very much.
Right. Why should Nigerians listen to you? The APC government is a government that has, in the words of the opposition ADC and the PDP, been a party full of excuses. Almost everything was blamed on the PDP throughout Buhari's first 3 years. You're saying that the subsidy itself, which the same PDP through former President Goodluck Jonathan wanted to remove, Nigerians should now listen to you. When Goodluck wanted to remove the subsidy, this kind of explanations that you have given, which some would call excuses, was what Goodluck wanted to also do, but you had no patience. Why should Nigerians now be patient with Tinubu when they were not patient with Goodluck's PDP?
Okay, now let us go back in history to the period President Jonathan held sway. The dynamics are different. At the time, oil production in Nigeria rose to 2.4 million barrels per day. And the price of oil at the time was also very high, at some point $120 to a barrel. And then Nigeria was raking in a whole lot of money from crude oil sales. Now, there was money in the economy. By the time Buhari came in 2016, production dropped to about 570,000 barrels per day, which is less than 40% of what was being produced daily during the time of President Jonathan. Now, the price also fell to $26. The dynamics are different. Now, at the time President Tinubu came, the production level had risen to about 1 million barrels per day, up to 1.2 million and thereabouts. But the price has also dropped significantly compared to the period President Jonathan was in office. So the availability of funds during President Jonathan's time was quite high, such that they could be able to still continue with the subsidy regime only by what they needed to do was to address the corruption that was embedded in the system.
So why didn't you address the corruption? Why did you completely jettison the subsidy regime? Because you said that there was money. Right now, Nigerians don't have money, and the fuel is about 10 times. Prior to this time, Nigerians were saying things were easier. A bag of rice, they'd give a comparison, or a bag of cement, they give comparison, and all of those comparisons they would give. Now a bag of cement is 10,000 naira. It was 2,500 naira during just the last administration of Muhammadu Buhari. And people are saying it is now times 4 for almost everything. This is when you now remove subsidy, when Nigerians no longer have money, and when the value of what they have cannot give them a decent life. That is when you're removing subsidy. The dynamics might be the same, might be different, but they say the timing is also a challenge. It's a time when Nigerians are not earning that much.
Remember, there is a time for everything. When your economy has gone to the point where over 70 trillion naira had to be printed through what the CBN introduced as ways and means.
But that was also during the APC administration.
Yes.
It was the APC that was printing money under President Buhari.
Lishman, before the APC administration came on board in 2015, I was always telling people, I'm a political scientist. I was telling people that any government that takes over from the PDP administration will have at least 4 years addressing the problems that have been caused by the PDP administration. Yes, I was saying it. Some of my friends can confirm that, because I already foresaw it. We were living larger than our means, and it was going to cut up with us at some point. It is reality that has downed on Nigeria. Today, if the ADC or PDP or Labour Party or any other party for that matter comes into office at the national level or at the state levels, you will still understand that things could actually get worse. Because we are talking about people, we are talking about parties without really addressing the structure that has engendered the current challenges we are facing as a country. When I say these things, people will not understand, and then they will argue. We have a structural problem in the country, which Tinubu is trying to address. But because of the dynamics in the system, which favors some regions, the current dynamics favor some regions, they don't want the system to change. And of course, they are in control of the National Assembly, through which the laws can be amended to reform the structure, to restructure the system. And so the president himself is also finding it difficult. Don't forget, from 1960, Nigerians have been complaining. We have been complaining. From the time of the NPN, we've been complaining. up to the time of PDP, the military have been complaining.
But it was this complaint that the APC said they will solve. APC told us that they will bring down the cost of petrol. APC said they will make the Naira more valuable. The APC made so much promises that made Nigerians kick out the PDP. This is 10 years after, and you're still telling us the problems of the APC. We're always talking about a sovereign national conference that would allow Nigerians to decide how we want to be structured, how we should have state police, how we should have more resources coming to the Niger Delta or to any area that produces anything as opposition, or then rather the Bola Tinubu and his team then in the AD and in the ACN. So it has taken 10 full years that you're in power and we have not seen the structuring.
It's happening gradually. You know, in Singapore, when Lee Kuan Yew became the prime minister, for up to 22 years, Singaporeans were complaining, protesting, doing all manner of things. They were insulting the government of failing the people of Singapore. That it was worse than the Japanese who were colonial masters of that territory. And it was a hell of problem for Lee Kuan Yew before he eventually started resetting the country on the path of development. Lee Kuan Yew went on to rule for 35 years straight. And then people began to see the gradual improvement of the economy of that country. Within a decade, yes, not much had happened, but he had already laid the foundation. And that foundation was built on. And also don't forget, when an economy is bereft of natural resources, they innovate and come up with ideas that would develop the country. That was what happened. In Singapore, there is no natural resource, not even fresh water. Before Lee Kuan Yew, there was no natural resources. Even up till today, they don't have natural resources. But what they did was to industrialize the country and turned the country from a third world to a first world country. And as of today, it is one of the countries with the highest GDP in the country.
So what is
in the
President
world.
Tinubu and the APC doing to
what President Tinubu and the APC is doing is to reset the economy, is to reset the structure of the country. For several years, people have been complaining about devolution of powers. People have been complaining about local government autonomy. President Tinubu went to the Supreme Court, secured a judgment, and then granted autonomy to local governments, financial autonomy. And then you saw the backlash, the fight from the subnational units, the states, still wanting the local governments to be under their whims and caprices. And that has continued. I want the president to, have more boldness in directly sending the allocations of local governments to them so that they can also perform at that level. These are gradual reforms that the president has initiated. There are also constitutional amendment processes that are ongoing. And then if these things push through, we are likely to have a turnaround, a transformation of the current system to a better system. But people should understand that resetting a country like Nigeria cannot happen overnight. We should also understand that this country went through not a linear line of a federation like the United States did. United States, the 13 original republics came together and formed the American Federation before others joined to the current 50 states or 51 as the case may be. Now, Nigeria was first aggregated, bringing the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria and the Colony of Lagos, and then the Protectorate of Northern Nigeria together. And by 1946 started the process of disaggregation. And when a federation is formed through aggregation, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult for regions to have autonomy. and then for them to be able to develop at their own levels. Therefore, the problem is both structural and then also the fact that we have not had consistent administrations for a number of years that could be able to address the teething problems and teething challenges of the country.
Well, your party did say that you were going to tackle the economy, you're going to tackle insecurity and corruption. But under the first 8 years of the APC in power, we saw a central bank governor who was fantastically corrupt. And that is even one of the few that have been unraveled. Was it a PDP problem?
I have always
or a Nigerian
maintained.
problem?
I have always maintained that no party is bad, no party is good. It is the people that runs it at the point in time that determines whether or not things go right. Now, if you look at the manifesto of the PDP and the manifesto of the APC, they are similar. They have similar vision. They have similar ideas. But then the people that runs the system is what determines the success or otherwise. During the PDP's time, corruption was like a right. Right now, the central bank governor, who was fantastically corrupt, is being prosecuted by the APC administration. And several others who are also facing corruption charges are being prosecuted by the APC government. There is still corruption. Corruption cannot be eliminated. There is no country in which there is zero corruption, even in China. But there are levels. And now we can see that through the reforms and policies put in place by the APC government from 2015, that's prevalent corruption, that pervasive corruption, has largely reduced. To further